Welcome to M&S, everybody. I'm Will, and we'll have the college football podcast where we talk about the rest of the country. Probably tomorrow, maybe Wednesday, but I just had to get on and talk. Because one, I couldn't realistically fit my thoughts on Auburn into that show. Obviously, I'm heavily biased. I'm even considering not talking about Auburn on the show and just making solo videos about Auburn when I need to because I have a lot of thoughts. And to be honest with you, I think a lot of Auburn fans would not like what I'm going to tell them, but there are things I felt for a long time. There are things that we should have known coming into this year, and they're just they're very baffling narratives taking place. So I'll go ahead and lay out the situation. This past weekend, Auburn dropped a pretty embarrassing game to Cal. And I gotta be honest, we played nearly the exact same game that we did against them in Berkeley last year. We played terribly against them last year. However, well, one, there was a weird call at the beginning of the game that uh, kept the momentum from shifting too heavily into their favor, if you remember. But also, they did just little enough to keep us around and to let us take the game away from them at the end. Of course, Rivaldo Fairweather catches the ball in the back of the end zone, and we win narrowly in one of the weirder college football games I've ever seen. But this year, plain and simple, Cal came out and just played solid football. And that is all they had to do to beat Auburn. And that fact is unacceptable because if you have eyes, you look at the television screen, you look at our guys and you look at theirs. Our guys are more talented, they are more physical, and especially in regards to our defense matching up against their offense, they were significantly more physically talented in the second half outright better. Now, in the first half, the script for Cal was very obvious. Control time of possession. Um, and looking back, that's even more genius because typically when you talk about controlling time of possession, it's about you want to keep their offense off the field, this, that, and the third. No, we weren't going to do anything. So I mean, the truth is, there's a world where Cal wins that game 14-0, or 7-0, or 14-7. They I know, like, with the final ending up 21-14, maybe it inspires a little more hope in what the offense did. I don't know how, but Cal, I know they did have to score 21 points. They did not. Um, so first off, what is not getting talked about is, well, okay, we're just going to jump right into it. This video is mainly about Peyton Thorne because most football fans have the tendency to, when they're upset at a game, blame two people: head coach and quarterback. And that is, of course, what we're doing right now because that's all the bulk of the Auburn fan base has done since I started watching when I was 9 years old in 2012, right? And yeah, quarterback situation in 2012 was awful. The best starter we had was Kyle Frazier, which, no disrespect to Kyle Frazier, still bled, sweated, and cried blood, sweat, and tears. You get what I'm going for. Uh, for the organization, still immense amount of respect for him. 20 times more talented on a football field than I could ever dream of being, but not a great situation when he's the best guy you have. Um, and then you look at 2013 and 14, we had Nick Marshall. If you lost a game, guess who was getting thrown under the bus? Nick Marshall, Gus Malzahn, and then of course after that you have Jeremy Johnson, you have Sean White, you have who's pretty solid, by the way. You have JF3, you have Jarrett Stidham, and then you have Bo Nix, and that's the one that still gets me to this day. Because if you ask most Auburn fans, they will tell you that he was bad, and I cannot imagine why they think that unless it's just the correlating wins and losses with quarterback play. I watched the bulk of games that Bo Nix played for Auburn. I'm not the guy that's always glass half full in regards to this team. In fact, in years past, I was the guy that was like, man, Jarrett Stidham's really underperforming, even though he was pretty solid. I was that guy, and sure, I was pulling for Bo Nix. It's a legacy deal, but if I thought he was playing poorly, I would have just said that because a bad quarterback's a bad quarterback, a bad player's a bad player. He wasn't bad. He was not. None of what happened was his fault. People act like he just transformed into a different person when he went to Oregon. No, he was just in a good situation, so he played well. And do not fire back at me about a relatively poor performance in his NFL debut. He's a starting NFL quarterback. He is a starting NFL quarterback. And on the Plains, we couldn't do anything with him. Sure, his freshman year, good year for Auburn. We had a lot of talent on that team. And we were like, I mean, we took, relatively so, that historic LSU team to the wire. There's a world where we could have pulled off the win against Georgia. We did pull off the win against Alabama. Yes, I know Tua got hurt and everything, and sure, maybe we're not able to do that if we're not playing against pre being halfway decent at football Mac Jones. I don't know. Point is, there was something there. And I love Gus Malzahn. I really do. And to be honest with you, I still to this day am a little bit mad that we got rid of him. However, Hugh Freeze has shown on the recruiting trail, and honestly, even in um, his in-game coaching, he probably is a step above Gus, right? But Auburn had critical problems at that point. One, terribly undisciplined. Two, player development was pretty bad. Like, just I talked about looking at our guys versus looking at their guys. At that point, it was getting to where, like, okay, if we stepped on the field against Georgia or Alabama, their guys were just more physically imposing than our guys. That's real. And recruiting, like, hell, I can't even remember if that was the first one. No, it's not. The third thing was recruiting. Not recruiting at the level that Auburn had the ability to. And the reason I know that is because now Hugh Freeze is. Like, I think we can be that perennial 5 to 15 level of like having that recruiting class each cycle. And he's doing that. And that's what's frustrating. Because first, and I'll get back to Peyton Thorne and the whole Bo Nix thing, but it's frustrating because the biggest improvement that he's made is recruiting. A lot of the guys he's recruited either aren't playing yet or are young and need to develop. Which, again, looking at our guys, they are developing quicker. They are more physically developed. You have to give it time. Like, we knew what this team was last year. A lot of those pieces are still there. The main one's still there. And now we're going to talk about him. So Peyton Thorne, right? Not a good game. Just not a good game. And that's fine. That is fine to say. Peyton Thorne had a bad day. And Peyton Thorne, as the starting quarterback at Auburn and in his time at Mississippi State, Michigan State, had a lot of bad games. He's always been kind of an up and down quarterback with, to be honest with you, mostly down. And to be honest with you, Peyton Thorne would probably admit that to you. He knows he's probably not played to the level that he believes he can. You think that guy goes out and throws 4 picks and thinks he's playing well? No, he's not stupid, and neither is the coaching staff. So, okay, I don't want people to forget this about the Cal game. The biggest problem until the second half was third down. The defense not being able to get off the field for one reason or another on third down. There were some critical officiating deals that dealt us a poor hand, which is very ironic given the situation last year. A lot of Cal fans, rightfully so, would say that officiating leaned heavily in our favor, right? But I think of the missed pass interference, right, on a really good deep fade ball from Peyton Thorne. I I think of the really terrible roughing call. I can't remember. I think this was at the end of the second quarter, but the really bad roughing call that should just not have been called. I think of the official respotting the ball at the last second, which then led to the confusion with like the bad snap and then the spike and then the intentional grounding. Like there were lots of deals like that in this game that resulted in the defense staying on the field and their drives getting extended. Now, a lot of it also was due to Cal and specifically their quarterback. I want to give a lot of praise here. want to say his first name. I want to say Fernando Mendoza. Phenomenal game, especially that first half from that guy. He was untouchable. He did exactly what he needed to do to orchestrate fantastic drives. Again, you look at time of possession, and then you also look at the amount of times he had to put the ball in the air, and especially on third down. Awesome, awesome game from him. He posed a significant challenge to our defense, which they eventually caught on to in the second half. The defense really stood up. I don't want to hear about giving up 21 points. The defense is, like, in my opinion, with the way the offense played, defense is responsible for maybe half of those 21. Like, I'm sorry, that's not all of them. When you're constantly being put back on the field way too quick, and when you're constantly, in the shadow of your own goalposts, what are you supposed to do? The fact that they only allowed 21 is kind of impressive. And I will say part of that is probably due to Cal being very intentional in their pace of play. Peyton Thorne really came unraveled late in the game when it when he did have to shoulder the load. And that is a fair criticism to say you need a quarterback that when the lights are bright and when your back is against the wall, you need the quarterback that's going to go out there and make the plays. Peyton Thorne maybe isn't that guy. Peyton Thorne is probably the guy that when things are going well, he is good enough to distribute the football, uh, at least a little bit. He's got enough mobility to not be a total statue. He's fine. The problem is, as a whole, the team is not good enough to have just a fine quarterback and lean on that, lean on the passing game. And look, talk about the interceptions. People throwing out four interceptions, four interceptions. Yeah, three of them were his fault, and that's a lot of interceptions. But hell, the biggest one was the interception off the hands of Cam Coleman, which another situation where people are like, oh my God, Cam Coleman, he isn't walking in and immediately fixing all of our problems in the passing game. He's a freshman. He's like, what, 18, 19 years old? Like, what do you want him to do? Give him time. And I know I will say most Auburn fans, I think, understand that part. But what I think is unacceptable, so again, Peyton Thorne came completely unraveled late in the game. Just to be blunt, some very I'm trying not to use hyperbolic or like mean terms, bad reads, just terrible reads, some terrible throws in there. He was very late. He obviously did not trust what he saw the entire game. Um, and yeah, that's a losing recipe. Now, does he shoulder the blame for the loss? Yes. A lot of the problems had to do with Peyton Thorne not playing well. Booing him off the field, though, what does that do? Genuinely, what does that do? Because I've seen people say, like, no, you need to make your voice known, and oh, especially with NIL. I mean, these guys are effectively professionals. All right, cool, cool, cool. So I in a Twitter exchange I made this example, but I'm gonna make it here. Um, right, they're professionals. Let's look at the Phillies. I'm a Braves fan. Do you think I want to sit here and compliment the Phillies? Especially Philadelphia. We all know that's one of the most like rough sports environments you can have. They figured out that maybe, just maybe, the key to helping a struggling player isn't booing them off the field. We look at the Trey Turner deal. Struggled in the first few months with his mega contract there in Philly, right? And yeah, fans got frustrated, but what did they decide to do? Hey, we're going to give the guy a standing O, show him we're still behind him. He's here for the next 11 or so years. We got to back him. We just want him to get better and play well. What happened? I mean, you look at his numbers before and after, it is clear that knowing the fans were behind him helped. Do you think it's a good idea to send Peyton Thorne out there because it will be Peyton Thorne every Saturday? I don't think we have a quarterback on the roster that's better than him. I don't know that like I'll get to that. But do you think it's a good idea to send him out there every Saturday knowing that the second he makes a mistake, everyone in the building hates his guts? No, because you're actively taking away the advantage of a home environment. And we've done that so often in the last few years. There's no world. I don't care who it is. I think of Penn State emptying out our stadium. Unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. We like to look at the list of all the best home environments and the best atmospheres and get pissed off when we're not on there. And rightfully so. When Jordan Hare is at full throat and they're in the game late, not an environment in college football better. But a lot of these fans are fickle. And I look at Nebraska fans. Nebraska has, as Josh Pate would say, sucked water through a garden hose over the past decade and a half or so. They're looking to get a little bit better, but those fans have dealt with nothing but constant disappointment. But they seem to be the most loyal fan base, no matter what's going on. They're there. They show up. And maybe they have, maybe they haven't. I haven't heard them boo their own guy off the field. Because that's wrong. It's stupid. No, not just is it like morally wrong, it's an inherently just meaninglessly mean thing to do. It's also just stupid because there is going to be no positive yield from that. What do you think you're doing? And now, speaking of what do you think you're doing, criticisms against Hugh Freeze. Okay, there's two angles to take from this. If you want to say, well, as a head coach, you got to bear the responsibility. You got to prepare the team better. And if you know ball, right, and you want to sit there and go, and you're watching like all 22 and reviewing film after, saying, this wasn't it right here. Like whatever. That's an honest conversation. I'm still kind of gonna look at you and say, like, you really think you know better than the head coach of the football team, especially a guy that is known as an offensive guru. Like, do you do you really think do you think maybe you're out of your depth a little bit? But that's fine. But I get okay. I'll be blunt here. The idiots that want to be couch quarterbacks, and just because we lost, point the finger at Hugh Freeze. You're crazy. Like Hugh had a presser today, right? Didn't watch it because, truth be told, I don't really care what he says because if you listen to him in the offseason, he told you what the deal was going to be. Like he didn't act like this was going to be a team full of world beaters. He didn't act like we were going on some crazy run. He said, "Well, look, it's a learning year. We're going to have to play a lot of young guys." Like he without saying, "Hey, this isn't the year," without absolutely saying that, he did. So what I'm doing with this game is what I think fans in general should do. There's a lot to learn from this type of loss. It's a bad loss, right? And this will not be the last time we lose this year. We're probably going to lose a few more times. And that's okay. Like, it's one thing if we put all our eggs into the basket for 2024. We didn't. There's a reason we didn't go out and drop the bag on Cam Ward. And look, I'll be honest. I think we should have. I actually think with an elite quarterback, this team could contend. But this wasn't the year to really bank on that. And that's fine. Let these kids go out and develop. And for Peyton Thorne, like, yeah, this is the end of the road for him. Whatever happens this year is what happens. Does he probably have an NFL future? No. But what's better? Him figuring something out and maybe understanding how to operate the system a little bit quicker so that maybe we can hang in against LSU, Georgia, Alabama? Or is it better that he's just totally defeated and who knows, maybe we're starting Hank Brown or I don't know, maybe Walker White gets thrown in and his confidence gets crushed because this team just isn't ready. Like, what's a better situation? I understand being frustrated. I didn't think the Peyton Thorne move was a good one. When we got him, I felt like, yeah, there's probably a ceiling on this. He wouldn't have been the guy that I would have picked. But you know what? They did. And sure, I might even sit here and go like, maybe not the right call. He still is the best quarterback in that room, though. So, Want to be frustrated? Fine. I am too. My head was ready to pop off watching that game. We had no right losing it, especially because there was so much that was promising. Like, again, I talked about the guys like more physically imposing. I really like our defensive line. Like, Keldrick Falk specifically. Like, everyone knows about Keldrick Falk at this point. I want to say he was like all freshman team for the conference last year. Like, he's a dog. We know this. But, uh, again, frustrating game. I, for the rest of the day, wanted to just forget it. And I wanted to forget it until this point. But we play football this Saturday, right? Don't care who it's against. We play football this Saturday. Do not boo Peyton Thorne. If he plays poorly, he plays poorly. You booing is not going to change that. You getting behind him might. And let me tell you this much. You booing also is not going to convince the staff to put in a new guy. It's not going to happen. It's stupid. And we've got to treat our players better. Because we did the same thing to Bo. Well, I say we. I didn't do this to Bo Nix at all. One, because I watched the games and recognized that he's really not all that bad. The team just is. He's actually pretty solid, and he kept our heads above water in a lot of games. Games that we won and lost, by the way. But even if he had played poorly, like a lot of our guys were ready to run him off. Why? Why are we like this? We're trying to build something special here, and you're not helping that by showing recruits your true colors as a fan by being fickle. Because against Alabama A&M, when Peyton distributed the ball fine against absolutely no pressure and little to no coverage on his receivers, well, I mean, fans are ready to sort of get drunk on the hype and say like, "Oh, Peyton Thorne has taken a step forward," and like, I think he has. I actually do think he's better than he was last year. But then one bad game, one, and you're booing the guy off the field. I don't know if there were recruits in attendance, but that's a display you want to put on. That's pathetic. Be better. And look, yes, Hugh does have to do a better job of preparing his guys, right? And look, if Peyton is not the best guy in that room, if there's any of those guys are just a little bit sharper and can get the ball out quicker and trust what they see, or maybe have more arm talent, or maybe the decision making itself is just a little bit better, then sure, that guy deserves to play. Absolutely. Hugh will figure that out. You will not. So I hate sitting here in week 2 knowing that we just lost to Cal at home. That sucks so bad. That's such a defeating feeling. Um, even with the improvement after halftime, it still wasn't enough to beat Cal. That is frustrating. What's more frustrating is the discourse. The discourse is just so toxic and brain dead in a lot of ways. So, again, my advice, take this year for what it is. Maybe just watch the game understanding that this year it's a little bigger than the wins and losses. We need to see improvement in all areas of the game. And sure, we're probably not going to see that improvement in the quarterback room because the guys that are going to be on campus next year, they're probably not going to play this year. They're probably not going to play meaningful football this year. But like the wide receiver room, I mean, we're talking about Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson, Malcolm Simmons, right? Those are guys that we need to see improve week over week. Yeah, I think they're already a massive improvement over guys we've had on campus. And by the way, Key Lambert Smith and Robert Lewis, like very solid players. I'm talking about the freshmen, the young guys, right? I want to continue to see them build. I want to continue to see the guys on defense build. Like, I mean, hell, like a guy that's gonna probably like I think of like Amaris Williams, right? Yeah, he's probably not gonna wreck games this year, but God, I hope he's still on campus next year and the year after. Same for Keldrick Falk. He is gonna wreck games this year, but you get what I'm saying. And I still want to recognize the guys that aren't going to be around, like a Key Scott who decided to stay, right? Like Peyton Thorne played poorly. He's still putting in all the work, the blood, sweat, and the tears. Key Lambert Smith, he chose us. All right. So, I'm not telling you not to be frustrated. I'm telling you don't be stupid about it. I understand you love this team just the same as I do. And I'm sorry if this feels like I'm talking down to you. I don't intend it to be that way. Just please rethink the way you talk about the team that you love because the toxicity actively negatively affects the program in real life. Your voice absolutely can make a difference. The tone around the program needs to change. The guy at the helm has done an incredible job of trying to do that. Now it's time for you to do your part. Georgia fans had to do this back in 2015 with Kirby Smart. Alabama fans had to do this back in 2007 with Nick Saban. Our standards should be that. We want to build that. Gotta have some faith, please. So, thanks for watching. Please, if you hate me and think I'm an idiot, tell me in the comments. Like, and if you want to just discuss why he played poorly, fine. Go ahead. Tell me in the comments. I agree with you. Or any other facet of the game. If you think it was a bad coaching job, explain why. And if you just want to talk ball, also, just leave a comment. So, thanks for watching. Please leave a like. Please subscribe. And for my fellow Auburn fans watching this thing, War Eagle.